One of the goals I have for 2025 is to get out, explore more, do more overlanding, and just enjoy myself more. And to do that, I need to be able to work remotely. I still have a full-time job. Really appreciate all the subscribers, the Patreons and everything, but I still need a full-time job to pay the bills. So I'm always looking for ways that I can accomplish that. If I'm in the middle of nowhere, how do I work well remotely? Well, one of the things was to add Starlink. That's definitely a game changer. But when I'm stopped and it's time to work, how do I power everything? Now, granted, I have large power stations. I've got 1,000 watt hour, 2,000 watt hour power stations, but they're just inconvenient at times. Now, I swore I was not going to do another power station review this year. I was done. I had done plenty of them. There was some great products that came out until this company, Browey, reached out to me and said, hey, we'd like you to try our new power station. And it's an upgraded version of one they've had out for a while. And unless something is very unique or it solves a specific problem, then there was just no way I was going to be interested in it. And this one, it does kind of both. It has some very unique features to it, and it solves some problems. So first, let's dig into the actual specs here. It is trying to read my notes here, 614.4 watt hours. It's 17.7 inches by 13.35 inches by 5.69 inches and weighs 24.25 pounds. And you can see it's a nice compact form factor, kind of cool. DC output, I'll show you the ports on here. Let me open these up so we can see all these ports. There we go. So we've got two DC 5525s, which is kind of cool. Those are 12 volt, 10 amps. Two USB A's that can be 5 volt, 3 amps or 12 volts at 1.5 amps. One USB-C port at 5 volt, 3 amps, 9 volts, 3 amps, 12 volts, 3 amps, or 20 volts at 3.25 amps. Pretty cool. AC output, we have up to 1,000 watt hours, 1,000 watts of output with a peak of 2,000 watts, if something needs a lot of power to start up first. It is pure sine wave output at 110 volts at 5.45 amps. On the input side, we've got a DC 5521 that can take 12 to 24 volts at 4.5 amps. Now, they claim it has an efficiency of 85%, which should give it 521.9 usable watt hours of power. Okay, not bad. Pretty decent specs for a small, compact power station. One AC port, plenty. The main DC port, fine. We'll talk about the USB ports and some of the other ports in just a little bit. And it does have a 5-year warranty. Now, let's talk about why this is unique. I get my stuff out of the way here. Well, you got a little stand on the back. And when we open this, it has built-in solar panels. That is kind of cool, I gotta say. Not bad at all. These are combined 30 watts, which means usable. What can you expect to actually get when you have full sunlight hitting it? It's going to be around 25 watts. So kind of cool. It's the only power station I know that has its own built-in solar panels. Yes, unique. Cool feature, very unique. Gotta say, I'm kind of impressed with that. So, let's talk about what do I like about it. Well, yes, built-in solar panels. Gotta admit, it's pretty cool. Does make it a true solar generator without having any external parts on it. You can charge it with other means. You can hook up external power. You can hook up AC power to it. It comes with an AC adapter for charging. You can attach other solar panels to it if this isn't providing enough for it. It's got a decent selection of output ports, nice compact design, all that. So not too bad overall. But what do I not like about it? Well, I have said this with every power station I have reviewed. You've just missed the mark, just a hair. We have 2 USB-A ports, 1 USB-C port. I literally have one device, one, that uses USB-A. Everything else we have, my laptop, Starlink, my radios, my phone, everything uses USB-C. So I would do away with USB-A ports and give me 3 USB-C ports. I mean, as it sitting here, just like this, I cannot power my laptop and Starlink at the same time because I only have 1 USB-C port. That's kind of a bummer. Now, I do have these 5521s here, and I'm actually kind of a fan of 5521s. They're not bad. They're usable. They put out 12 volts. I can make use of that. I can make adapters. I can do all kinds of things. So that does give me some other options there. And Starlink, you can get a power supply that will plug in to this 12 volt port. So that's how I'm going to power it. I'm going to have the Starlink going into here and my laptop going into this one. USB-A's, I mean, that's not even powerful enough to really charge my phone. So that's kind of a downside there. But give me these 5521s, I can convert those. There's cables on Amazon that will go from 5521 to USB-C. It's an extra cost, but you could make that work if you wanted to. So that's not too bad. The other thing is the solar panels. Now, these are, like I said, they're 30 watt, which is going to give you about 25 watts of power going into this. Is that going to work? Yes, no, kind of, sort of. In a perfect world, I want to be out somewhere, being able to work, keep my MacBook, my phone, and my Starlink all up and running. My phone's not a big deal. I can charge that at night. I can charge it while I'm driving. I can charge it other ways. Not a big deal. So let's narrow it down to my MacBook and Starlink, right? Now, Starlink is going to average about a 30 watt draw. So right there, we have a problem that this is only going to charge at 25 watts. My MacBook on average, well, not average, let me rephrase that. Generally throughout the day, when I'm using my MacBook Pro M1 Max, it's pulling 15 watts. So not a ton of power. This is going to spike when I'm doing any video editing, especially if I'm rendering final output. That power is going to jump way up, 40, 50, 55 watts. But for my normal day-to-day work, my emails, my PowerPoints, my Word docs, that type of stuff, it's typically running around 15 watts. So long as I'm starting with a fully charged battery. If the battery is, say, 50% because I was using it in the tent overnight and I didn't have it plugged into anything, now it's going to pull a lot of power, not just keeping it running, but also charging the battery. So, little downside right there. But let's do a little hypothetical. We're saying we're starting with a fully charged battery and we're going to be doing some basic work, right? So, over 6 hours of time, these two combined, Starlink and my MacBook, I'd be pulling 270 watt hours. Now, if we had 6 hours of full sunlight, that would generate 180 watts. So we would have 439.9 watt hours left when we're finished, or about 82% of the battery left. It could be a little more or less depending on my actual usage, but that's going to be a good ballpark. If I had 6 hours of sunlight, I would pretty much wrap up the day, 75–80% of the battery left in here. So that in mind, I could probably work 3 days without having to supplement any additional charge on here. So that's not bad at all. If this thing had 60-watt panels on here, game over. I would finish the day and this would be fully charged. So that means I can take some supplemental 100-watt solar panels, plug it into this, keep it fully charged, or I can run it for a day or two and then have to deal with charging it. Now, if I'm overlanding, I'm going from location to location to location, then I can also plug this into my Blue Eddy Charger 1 that's in the Jeep and charge it while I'm in motion, and it's going to charge up pretty quickly. So I have some different options on how to charge it, how to keep some supplemental charge into it, or if I'm just doing some basic work, or I'm only going to work 4 hours that day or something, then I may have plenty of power in here to keep this running. Now, also keep in mind, over a 6, 7, 8 hour day, you're taking breaks. You're going to the bathroom, you're walking the dog, you're having lunch, you're doing all kinds of things where everything is going to be off, in which case I'm going to be charging without pulling any power. So that 82% that I said I'm being left with at the end of the day might actually be more, depending on how much time I've spent walking away from the laptop and it going to sleep, and then there's basically zero power draw. So I think for me, not for everybody, I think for me, this is going to be an interesting addition to the kit because I can squeeze this in somewhere pretty easily, set it up next to where I'm working, just like this, get some sun coming into it, and help keep this thing charged while I'm working and powering the devices that I need to charge. So overall, I think it's a pretty good option. Now, let's take a look at the price on this thing. So right now on Amazon, the list price is $579.99, and they have an $80 coupon. Just click on it, save $80, drops it down to $4.99. So not super cheap, not super expensive, kind of in the ballpark for you'd expect in this kind of a size range. But that's including 30 watts of solar panel on here. So I think that's actually a pretty fair deal. Like I said, I do wish it had larger, maybe when this is open, that it had 2 that folded out that could give it 60 watts of power. That would be just absolutely ideal. I wish they would improve on these little covers here. They do have a tendency to not stay in place very well. But it's nice that they're there and they can help keep some of the dust out of it. So would I recommend you buy it? You know what? It really depends on your use case. There are going to be some people who this is going to be an absolutely perfect product for, and there's going to be others who simply don't need anything like this. But I think when you're starting in overlanding, or as you get going in overlanding, one of the things that's going to come up on a regular basis for you is power management. Now, not everybody needs a lot of power. Some people need a lot more than others. I'm a pretty heavy power user or consumption. I have a high power consumption. A lot of devices that need power because I have to work. So MacBook, Starlink, phones, GPS devices, iPad, all radio, all kinds of things I have to be charged all the time. A refrigerator in the back of the Jeep, diesel heaters at night. I have a lot of power consumption going on. And so trying to fine tune that balance of just take big power stations versus take power stations that serve your needs, because often that means something smaller than what you could possibly take. So I think that's a big deal. You got to figure out what your power consumption needs are and then base your purchases on that. Now, obviously, this is not going to work 100% of the time. Right now, I've got a little bit of cloud cover and I've got some trees in the way. I'm not going to get 25 watts out of this. I'm going to get 10, 15, maybe 20 watts out of it. So I have to be prepared for those days when maybe there's not even any sun. Maybe it's raining or snowing and I cannot generate any power. I need to make sure I have enough to get me through to the next time that I can add power to this, whether it be solar panels, whether it be the Blue Eddy Charger 1 that's in the Jeep, or going to an alternate power source like the house battery in the trailer, or tapping into the one that's in the Jeep for the refrigerator. I have to make sure I have enough power to get through a couple of days of not having any supplemental power. But when I can get light and I can get other sources, then I can pump everything back up to full and keep going for a few more days. So if you're only out for a day or two, something like this may not be important to you. You can just take enough power to last. If you're going to be out 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 14 days, now you really have to think about your power consumption and pick out what is going to get you through, even if you don't get power, supplemental power for a couple days because there's no light or you're not moving, things like that. So again, is this going to be good for everybody? Not necessarily. Is it going to be the right thing for us? Maybe. We're going to see. We're going to try it out. I've got a week-long trip coming up pretty soon, and I'm going to try and be working from the remote locations where I expect to have plenty of sun. You never know with weather, but I'm going to see if this really does work out for me and save some space versus taking a larger power station with us. So hopefully that answers some questions, gives you another option out there, something a little bit unique. Obviously could use some improvements in the USB port area, but overall not a bad product. And even as it sits, I can use it with my MacBook and my Starlink and keep everything up and running. So thanks for watching, everybody. This has been Kerry with Trail Traveler. Be safe out there. I will see you on the trails.